very special and dear friend, Rita Lorraine Carey. And we met in Sedona, Arizona, and we want to talk about how things happen in this world and divine ideas, chance meetings, divine ideas, all kinds of things that are somewhat inexplainable, but we're going to try to explain it anyway.
Yeah.
Whether we do.
And I'll say this, like whoever tunes into this, I would love for them in the comments when we get into like, you know, how serendipities and stuff, like your best serendipity story, you know? And we'll talk, I guess that's kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit, right? Because we met and it was this, you know, a situation where we looked at each other and we're like, we're not meeting for this, are we? And we both kind of said that at the same time.
We both knew it within 5 minutes. And I said, I know that we're meeting for a different reason. I'm not sure what that is. But we worked on some films that Rita started. She's got a spiritual film.
Yeah.
And it's something about presence and moods and personalities and things like that. And seeing that, reading it in people. And I don't want to say too much more.
Yeah, so like, when we met in Sedona, you said, what are you doing in Sedona? And I said, I started a film here. And you were like, oh, I'm a filmmaker. And we're like, oh, and you were like, what is it about? And I'm like, well, I signed a non-disclosure. And you were like, okay, don't talk about it, you know? And so I can't talk a lot about it, but what I will say is that we are loved and guided by energies that we cannot see, that move all around us and through us. And I think, like you were saying, presence, you know, like being in that space of realizing we have this divine guidance there all the time.
Right on.
How do you stay present and tap into it? And
right. Well, one thing that we have to mention is that Oliver was present when we met. And so that energy was there. And he is one heck of a little man.
Yeah.
And of course, Jolie was there.
Yes.
And Jewel, I don't think Jewel was there because I don't think we had Jewel yet. I've had Jewel less than 2 years. So Jewel wasn't there, but Jewel loves Rita, and Jewel is really enamored with this little man, Oliver, too.
Yeah.
He's just such a little man.
Yeah.
And he's a rescue, so we should talk a little bit about the dogs. Because they're so precious.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like, I used to volunteer with a group called Lost Dog and Cat Rescue. I'm from the DC area, and they're a great organization if you're out that way or if you want to invest in a group that they're really trying to link a good owner with a cat or a dog. You'll see them a lot at PetSmart. That's what I did with volunteer work, is I would go to PetSmart and they would bring a dog in and I'd walk around the store and I'd kind of have the rap sheet of the dog, you know, like I knew if the dog was like good with other dogs or cats or kids or, you know, because a lot of them were fostered. And it was a good way, like if you're interested in a dog that you want to rescue, you can go on their website and then you can ask to see that dog at a Petco or a PetSmart when they're next there. So anyway, I was on their site and Oliver was on there and he was a puppy. So you can also, from these rescue groups, you can also get puppies, which is kind of cool. And he was so adorable. And I remember calling a friend. I said, he's kind of a Yorkie. I'm not quite sure. And she had Yorkies. And I was like, what do you need? What should I know? And she was like, oh my God. She's like, when you see him, you're going to fall in love with him. And you're going to want to take him home.
Yes.
And that's kind of the way it was. And I feel like, you know, they say rescue dogs rescue you and, or dogs rescue you, right? So I do feel like he rescued me to be with my mom. And so he spent, when I went overseas, he spent a year with her and he was with her until she transitioned. He's awesome.
He is. And he has one of my husband's favorite prerequisites, which is the girls are allowed to hang around boy dogs and have them over if they don't pee in the house. And he's a good boy. He doesn't pee in the house. So we love Oliver for so many reasons, but he's such a little man. And just that haircut, he is just absolutely a hoot. So we love him. We love to take him places. He's a lot of fun. Jolie really likes him. Jolie says, I'm sitting with Oliver right now.
You want to get down, buddy?
She says, I want to sit over here right now. So I say, okay, honey, you can sit over there now. So how do we know when we're following a divine voice? Well, for me, like if I meditate, I don't always get the answer that I'm kind of hoping for at the time I meditate. You're going to tell me how this works for you too.
Yeah.
But sometimes later in the day even, I'll get a billboard that will just wham, and it's a message and it's a sign and it tells me what to do.
Yeah.
And that sounds really crazy, but I get it later.
Yeah.
You know, in a moment when for some reason I'm present to it and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you should always write these ideas down. Do you know why? Because if you don't write them down, then a lot of times you don't do them. And that's a shame because that idea was a gift. That was indeed a divine idea. How do you get your divine ideas, Rita?
One of the things I like to do is to affirm different things. So I'll affirm when I do feel guided about something, I will say, oh, I'm always well guided. Now, if I'm around other people, sometimes they get offended. It's not to say that I feel like I'm more guided than anyone else. It's just that I think as we affirm anything in our lives, it almost sets us up, good or bad, you know, like it sets us up for that. So I do meditate, I do calm my mind, and I think when we're in that space, we can connect to more of what we are. And then I just kind of stay present. And I know to follow threads. So if I'm researching something and then I see, even on YouTube, maybe something on the side pops up and I'm like, I see my eye gets drawn to it. Then I'm like, oh, I should check that out. And then I also am real present, like with how I'm feeling. So if it feels good or I feel like, then I will tend to keep kind of following those threads. And then reaffirming when the thread is a good thread like that, like I'll say, oh, I'm always well guided. I'm always well guided. Like you're always well guided. So
I always say I'm divinely guided, protected, and directed, but I say that so many times a day.
That's awesome.
That it always pulls me back to where I need to be, or